Hey there, race fans. It's race day, top 5 with me, Frank 5. First of all, different background, and I'm in Chincoteague Beach for just a couple of days, and then I'll be back home in my normal area. But anyways, Homestead Miami Speedway. The last couple of years, basically the last 2 decades, it has played host to the Championship 4 finale at Homestead finale to decide who wins the championship in the Cup Series, Xfinity, and Truck Series. Well, this year it's a completely different story. Now it's become part of the regular season, but due to COVID-19, it was pushed back from March to June. But we got it in, but it wasn't easy because 3 lightning delays literally almost postponed this thing to today. But they got the whole thing in with a lot of intense racing, and the man that could have possibly won the championship last year at that track got a little bit of redemption to prove that he is still, once again, a favorite to win the title this year. Number 1, Denny Hamlin, so dominant all night long, captured the Dixie Vodka 400 at Homestead Miami Speedway, winning it over Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, and Eric Almirola. Hamlin was strong from the start. Started up in the top 5 based on random draw. Stayed up there pretty much the entire race, led the most laps, won all 3 stages, stages 1, 2, and 3. And he has crew chief Chris Gabehart back this weekend. Obviously, the last 4 races, Gabehart wasn't allowed at the racetrack because he was suspended for the ballast issue that Denny Hamlin had, the Coke 600, before they took the green flag, wearing a piece of ballast fell out from behind the car, and he had to make a pit stop, fix all that, and that led to a 4-race suspension for his crew chief, his car chief, and his engineer. But he got all those guys back yesterday, and Denny Hamlin and Chris Gabehart combined are a dynamic duo that can win races and contend for championships. And another thing that Denny Hamlin did last night, other than getting his 3rd win of the season and getting his crew chief back, he tied Mark Martin for 19th on the all-time win list with 40 career wins. I mean, Mark Martin, we all know, he's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and he's perhaps the best NASCAR driver to never win a championship. Denny Hamlin might be the 2nd best or 3rd best driver in NASCAR to not win a championship, because Carl Edwards is up there as well. But is this the year that Denny Hamlin puts it all together? He could have done it last year. He could have done it in 2016. He could have done it in 2010 when he battled Jimmy Johnson and Kevin Harvick. But is this the year for Denny Hamlin? If they can eliminate the mistakes and have good, solid races every single weekend, then Denny Hamlin might be your champion when we get to Phoenix. And last night, he put a stamp on it with his 3rd win of the season, which is most of anybody that's won so far. So Denny Hamlin's heading in the right direction as we get further and further through the season, as we get closer to the playoffs, which are only, believe it or not, 3 months away. Number 2, Chase Elliott. This will be a driver recap for my boy. 2nd place finish, a solid performance, the best performance he's ever had at Homestead Miami. His previous best finish was a 5th back in 2017, and we ran up front a lot in the race last night. We led a bunch of laps, led about 27 laps, stayed up there the entire night. We're as low as 8th, I believe. I'm eliminating green flag pit stops because obviously everybody shuffles around positions, but as far as eliminating green flag pit stops, Chase Elliott never left the top 10 pretty much the entire night. I mean, he was top 5 up there. He leapfrogged Denny Hamlin in the last green flag pit stop, hoping to get an advantage over Hamlin, and it looked to be in his favor until he was closing up on lap traffic, and of course, one of them was Joey Logano, and if you all remember what happened a couple weeks ago between Elliott and Logano at the closing laps at Bristol, Logano was like, I'm not letting you by because I still kind of hold a grudge. I don't hate Joey Logano, I don't. But you know what? He kind of wanted to rattle Chase Elliott's cage in a way and prevent him from getting a win and getting more bonus points, which, you know, it's competition, but you are about to go 2 laps down, so you kind of have to let the leaders go by. But he wasn't having any of it with Chase Elliott. He held him up. Denny Hamlin went by, and Elliott, the last couple laps, kept closing until with 3 laps to go, he kind of scraped the wall, and that pretty much ended our chances. But, I mean, we were literally within a second of Denny Hamlin, those final few laps, trying to win a race. So that just shows that how good Elliott's driving style is, how good his cars have been. I mean, again, his cars have been on rail this year. They've been fast. Everywhere we've gone, Chase Elliott's been in the top 10 and at least up front battling for the win in most of the races this year. We're just having a solid season. I'm excited as a Chase Elliott fan, and hopefully, we can continue to press ourselves down the road with a couple more wins down the road, which I think we will get. Hopefully, by the end of the season, Elliott, instead of 3 wins like he's had the last 2 years, he can have more than 3 wins at the end of the season. Number 3, Tyler Reddick, the rookie. And of course, the last 2 times we've been at Homestead in the Xfinity Series, he not only won the race, but he won the Xfinity Championship on top of that. And the first time he won the championship, people were like, oh yeah, that was a fluke, because he only won the opening race at Daytona, and he just got lucky in the playoffs. Well, he went to Richard Childress Racing in 2019 to prove everybody wrong that wasn't a fluke, and it was not a fluke whatsoever, as he won the championship beating Cole Custer and Christopher Bell. And this year, he has really resurrected Richard Childress Racing as an organization. They've been up front so much more than they've been in the past. I mean, Tyler Reddick is literally the real deal. And I think he's got a legitimate chance to make the playoffs if he can continue to have good, consistent races. Because the first few races this year, even before the pandemic, Tyler Reddick was running in the top 10 a lot, but they had a lot of incidents that they have to eliminate, him and his crew chief, Randall Burnett. They have to eliminate the mistakes, and they have to carry forward with some consistent finishes. And this is one of his best racetracks. I mean, he has never finished outside the top 10 in any event that he's been here, whether it was trucks, whether it was Xfinity, or whether it's the Cup Series. Obviously, last night was his first Cup start. Coming with a 4th place finish, that's incredible. I mean, and he was up front battling for the win a lot tonight. I mean, he may not have led, but he was literally a top 3 car the entire race. I mean, this kid is something special. And it was a good night for Richard Childress overall, because Austin Dillon came away with an 8th place finish the first time, probably since 2018. I heard the statistics say that Richard Childress had both of his cars in the top 10, which is pretty cool. And Austin Dillon also welcomed his firstborn baby to the world yesterday. Him and his wife, Whitney, welcomed Ace R.C. Dillon, basically combining Ace Ventura. Have you ever seen the movies? I never have. Ace Ventura and RC, like an RC car that you usually like to play around. I guess that's why they called him that. But it was a good day overall for Richard Childress Racing. Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, they're both close to the playoff grade. They both could make the playoffs this year if other guys have issues, because, again, the Chevy body and the crew chief combinations these guys have and the chemistry that these guys bring together, the 8 and the 3 look so much better this year than we've seen the last couple of years. So Richard Childress Racing is having a good bounce back year from what was a mediocre 2019. Number 4, Ryan Blaney is still looking for his first win of the season, but he put together a really solid effort last night with a 3rd place run. He was up there a lot. He led a lot of laps. He was probably the second best car to Denny Hamlin, but he just was so good in the short runs, but the long runs was Hamlin's strong suit. He literally pulled a gap away from Blaney, and there were a couple times where Blaney could reel in Denny Hamlin, but he couldn't complete the pass, and plus lap traffic was in the way, so it didn't give Blaney any advantage whatsoever to try and catch and pass Denny Hamlin. But Blaney has definitely performed well the last couple of races. Obviously, last weekend, if you remember, struggled at the beginning, fell a lap down, got his lap back, got all the way back up to the front, led a couple laps, then had a penalty for a crew member over the wall too soon, and that could have cost him the win. Instead of Martin Truex winning, Ryan Blaney, if that issue didn't happen, he would have probably been sitting in victory lane, all happy and dandy. But he came away again with a nice top 5 run last night. I mean, Blaney, again, these guys can eliminate mistakes, just like Denny Hamlin. They can win more races, and they can be championship contenders by the end of the season. And number 5, the whole race in general, I thought it was really good. I mean, and plus, the other thing about this race, it wasn't the championship 4 race. Obviously, the last couple years, we've been deciding who's going to win the championship. Of course, the new playoff format where 4 drivers are eligible to compete for the championship in the last race of the season happened starting 2014 and concluded at the end of 2019 last year. This was a completely different race. I saw a little bit more everybody just letting the reins out, basically just going for it, because the last couple of years when we had the championship 4 finale at Homestead deciding who's going to win the title, a lot of the other guys that were battling for the championship probably were, they were racing, but they were a little bit more on the conservative side because they don't want to get in the way of all the other guys that are battling for the championship. They don't want to make any mistakes that'll also hurt those guys. So they were a little bit more conservative the last couple of times that they went to Homestead. They still raced, but they're a little bit more on the conservative safe side. This race, they just let them loose, obviously, and they had a ball. The restarts were incredible. It was fun, obviously. The whole weather delays that we had yesterday were absolutely ridiculous, but that's what you get with Florida in June, where these pop-up showers happen. I mean, it happens when we go to Daytona for the July race this year. Obviously, this year it's not happening. It's happening in August, so it could still happen whatsoever. But I thought Homestead did a good job. And also another thing about Homestead yesterday, not everybody, but some fans got to be in the grandstands for the race, and I think it's steps in the right direction. We're heading in the right direction, letting a couple fans back into the stands, letting them get an experience of being in a live race again. Obviously, they had some testing to the fans to see, are you clear to come in? Are you COVID-free, basically? Are you healthy enough to go in? The amount was 1,000 guests. The stands didn't say 1,000. There was, I'd say, I couldn't tell how many fans possibly were in that stands because, again, you can't really count how many people are there with the small specs and the overhead shots. And, the whole situation came up at a unexpected time. But it was still good to have fans back, and we're making progress. And the upcoming race weekend at Talladega, we're going to have 5,000 fans, and I'm sure that will be the limit. Obviously, we're going to have 5,000 fans there because it's Talladega, and it provides our excitement. But glad to have fans in the stands yesterday. It sucks they had to deal with all these lightning delays in the area, but they still got to witness a race, and I hope they got their money's worth. Military personnel and a couple of guests, fans. Actually, Alvin Kamara came to the game in support of Bubba Wallace, of course, the famous running back for the New Orleans Saints, who I predict will be Super Bowl contenders at the end of this year. I mean, obviously, this is a NASCAR channel, but I love the NFL. You've seen a couple of videos in the past. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. They're Super Bowl contenders this year by far. But yeah, it was good to have Alvin Kamara come to the game and support Bubba Wallace. Obviously, both are African-American athletes and both very, very successful at what they do. So, this upcoming race weekend, Talladega. Oh boy. 3-4 wide. A lot of intensity, the big one, and a little bit of safety coming into this race after the Daytona 500 with Ryan Newman's last lap crash. So it should be a very interesting and hopefully fun and exciting race. We will see what happens. Who do I think is going to win? I have no clue, because anybody can win Talladega. I mean, we saw what Front Row Motorsports did in 2013. David versus Goliath. Two Davids. Reagan and Dillon beat the Goliaths and Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, and Jimmy Johnson to win the Aaron's 499 in 2013. Who will conquer this upcoming Sunday's race at Talladega, which will allow 5,000 fans to come and watch exciting three-wide action? We shall see. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to get, as Ricky Bobby's son says, I'm going to get all jacked up on Mountain Dew. So subscribe, like, congrats to Denny Hamlin on his third win of the season. Homestead provided a great event, even for those limited amount of fans that got to come. And until then, have a nice week.